thank you for inviting me into your meeting because I think what I have to say will cause you to look at your new cars with a new appreciation of what they are as well as what they represent from the standpoint of proud heritage. You see, we who surround ourselves with the finer material things of life usually have a very high regard for the heritage, the traditions, the singleness of purpose of the institution or house that builds the product. So that's why I want to at least highlight for you the story of the Lincoln heritage. Although no one knew it at the time, the automotive destinies of the names Lincoln and Continental were beginning to take shape as long ago as 1913, along with the steadily forming tastes, character, and outlook of a young man who was then building a scrapbook, which I have borrowed. This scrapbook is filled with pictures of automobiles. When the book was started, the young man had already built at least one automobile of his own. He'd lost the tip of a finger in a lathe while doing so. The pictures he was saving were of automobiles whose appearances, in whole or in part, appealed to his highly selective and developing eye. Just look. A 1911 European car had the place of honor on page 1. Its name, Continental Pneumatique. Page after page was filled with pictures of the finest custom-built cars from all over the world. However, even back then, the heart of the young man was filled with a growing conviction and a wish that cars like these, or even finer, could be properly designed and built as production-type automobiles. And they would be styled not just to carry people from place to place, but to lift their spirits as well. This lad had a vital and natural interest in production-type automobiles because his name was Edsel Bryant Ford. In 1918, while this scrapbook was still building, American aviators and their allies were building significant value of a new kind into an already honored name, Lincoln. They were accomplishing this simply by demanding Lincoln-built Liberty engines before flying into combat. You see, there was a Lincoln Motor Company at that time. It was owned by Henry M. and his son, Wilfred Leland. But there'd been no Lincoln car. The Lincoln car did not appear until 1920. But when it did appear, because of the war record of the Lincoln-built engines, it was already endowed with a reputation as the finest expression of American precision manufacturing. And it was. But as you can see by this 1921 model, the styling left much to be desired. What people found to admire was the engine and chassis. Among those who appreciated the underlying high quality of the Lincoln engine and chassis were Henry and Edsel Ford, by this time ex-president and president, respectively, of a motor company with unparalleled resources. Still thinking in the terms of the dreams in his scrapbook, Edsel now saw how they might be brought into practical reality. He said, "Father has made the most popular car in the world. Now I would like to make the finest car in the world." And as you know, that firm resolve has never changed. So in February of 1922, Henry and Edsel Ford purchased the Lincoln Motor Company from the Lelands. Now, with the vast Ford resources behind the Lincoln, life was breathed into a dream based on the announced determination to build a car as nearly perfect as humanly possible. From an engineering standpoint, the first Lincolns were mechanical marvels. The precision engineering and craftsmanship were phenomenal. Why, at 100,000 miles, the car was considered no more than well broken in. In fact, many of the cars racked up 500,000 miles. Some went more than 1 million. But this kind of success represented only part of the fulfillment of Edsel Ford's dream. Because while he was building his scrapbook, he had built within himself a hunger for a car of beauty, grace, dignity, and good taste, as well as for mechanical excellence. And what's more, it was to be a production-type automobile. It's interesting to note that the last few entries in the scrapbook were not pasted in. They were merely slipped in, loose. And in about 1925, the scrapbook was put aside. Its maker was sufficiently inspired. He was now involved in the job of inspiring others, and this was a full-time job. Edsel Ford found that the biggest part of his job was to overcome a deep-rooted prejudice in favor of old methods. For instance, it had never been an industry practice to style a car first and design a conforming chassis afterwards. The practice, instead, had always been to meet a mechanical goal as conveniently as possible and then to put a body on the result. Well, no company in America was better equipped to follow the established procedures than the Ford Motor Company. However, no one was less willing to let it remain that way than Edsel Ford, so he did something about it. His first move was to commission the world's finest coach workers to design custom Lincoln bodies of truly classic beauty. These included such master craftsmen as Holbrook, LeBaron, Dietrich, Brun, Judkins, Willoughby, and Locke. The resulting cars were distinctively beautiful and proved beyond all doubt the soundness behind Edsel Ford's conviction that classic styling and mechanical excellence could be wedded in one fine car. These classic creations established the Lincoln as the leader in automotive styling. Everything that went into the design, style, and building of the car, or into the promotion of the Lincoln name, was judged on the basis of whether or not it was as nearly perfect as humanly possible. Those 6 words described the singleness of purpose that was building the foundation of a fine heritage. Nothing less than this ideal of perfection was considered acceptable for the Lincoln. And 4 more words described the manner in which all of these things were being done. They were with impeccable good taste, a reflection of the way Edsel Ford looked at automobiles, at his fellow man, or at life itself. It's interesting to see how these ideals are expressed in the promotional material for the middle and late 20s. It was during this time that the image of Lincoln was being built strongly in the public mind as the world's finest car. And to coincide with the showings of the car for the year 1925, in special exhibits in New York and Chicago, Lincoln published this famous Salon Bird Book. It was not only a tasteful piece of advertising, but in itself, the book was a notable contribution to the graphic arts of that day. The book explained and illustrated how Lincoln designers had taken their color schemes from the beautiful plumage of exotic birds and wrought color harmonizing Lincoln interiors and exteriors of classic elegance. Page after page revealed new and exciting color combinations. The copy described the birds, their colors, and habits. And almost as an afterthought, it casually went into a description of the car and discussed that with the reader, asking his opinion. Going through the book was almost like paying a visit to a gracious home. But Lincoln didn't forget, nor let its friends forget, that along with all this grandeur, there had to be a car as nearly perfect as humanly possible from the standpoint of engineering and manufacturing craftsmanship. So they published literature telling the story of Lincoln's unexcelled craftsmanship. The books proudly highlighted the supremely fine workmanship and infinite care that went into the construction of the Lincoln chassis. Here was precision craftsmanship so perfect that, as the book says, a new Lincoln, when delivered, may be driven wide open the first mile. Do you begin to see or feel what I meant about the proud heritage of Lincoln? As it is today, this same ideal of good taste and unexcelled craftsmanship was reflected in these advertisements of the early and mid-20s. Just listen to some of this copy. October 1924, precision. Everyone admires the dignity of the Lincoln's outward beauty, but only those of advanced technical understanding fully appreciate the marvel of its mechanical perfection. By this time, the name Lincoln, founded on the policy of both unexcelled craftsmanship and good taste, began to triumph among fine cars. As a result, when it came to prestige, Lincoln far surpassed Packard and Cadillac. And Lincoln became the favored car of social leaders, celebrities, government heads, and royal families the world over. In 1939, Edsel Ford again took an historic step which added still greater strength to the prestige value of the Lincoln heritage. He designed a brand new car. It had a long hood, exposed spare tire, and a formal upper structure. It was strictly modern in feeling, but ageless in character. True, it was built as a personal car for himself. But when he drove it on a vacation in Florida, things began to happen. He was not on business and had solicited no one. But he returned burdened with literally hundreds of orders that had been thrust at him by prestige-minded car buyers. So was born the Lincoln Continental. The famed Continentals which followed were immediately acclaimed as classics. And before many years, the name Continental had become almost as legendary as the name Lincoln had ever been. Even today, these early Continentals are still admired and highly prized, and their owners have formed clubs for annual get-togethers, their only common tie being the fact that they are the envied possessors of early edition Continentals. Even after the war, the names Lincoln and Continental were still reflecting their proud heritage. And in 1955, the Continental Mark II appeared. The reputation for classic beauty was again enhanced tremendously. In 1956, the designers of the completely new Lincoln Premier Hardtop Coupe received the first styling award ever given to an automobile by the Industrial Designers Institute. And in 1958, a totally restyled Lincoln family of fine cars, even more classic in character and even more deserving of the legendary Lincoln heritage, was joined by the Continental Mark III. And as you know, these fine cars immediately captured the respect and admiration of the entire automotive world. And now, in a completely new precision manufacturing plant of its very own, new and more rigid quality controls add strength to Lincoln's lifelong pledge to build a car as nearly perfect as humanly possible. This exclusive plant, specifically designed for fine car building, with the most modern tools and methods, is the place where, from now on, Lincoln's traditional classic beauty and unexcelled craftsmanship will continue to live and add still more prestige to an already proud heritage that found its beginning back in the early 20s. And just as it was true then, today that same careful attention to detail, the same skilled handwork, and that same personal pride in craftsmanship is being reflected in the product. The story of the aristocratic heritage back of the proud names of Lincoln and Continental is one that perhaps many of you already knew. Nevertheless, I felt it important to remind you of it. Why? Well, the traditions, the heritage of a product can be just as important to you who build and sell that product as the pure bloodlines of a thoroughbred are important to the breeder who preserves and refines the original image of the sire and the finest characteristics of the line. In a like manner, the image of the original Continental has been preserved and refined until today it can be described as the Ultra, of which nothing can be finer. The thoroughbred characteristics of the Lincoln, too, its classic beauty, its unexcelled craftsmanship, have been preserved and refined through the process of evolution. Actually, all I want is to cause you to look today at your new Lincoln and Continental in the light of the original ideals, the traditions, the heritage they represent. It's a rich heritage, a heritage of which all of you can be proud. And you can be equally proud of the important contribution each of you can make during the coming years to add new laurels and even greater prestige to the living heritage of Lincoln. Well, that's all I wanted to say. So, thank you again for letting me say it.